Back in my day, we didn't Netflix and chill, we Homestar Runner and chilled. We didn't watch stolen copywritten content on Facebook, we did it on eBaum's World. We didn't entertain ourselves through Snapchat, we did it on Neopets. Neopets is a browser-based game and community where you play games, participate in storylines, and take care of a Neopet, a virtual Pokemon-esque creature. This shit was everywhere in the early 2000s, but then it just wasn't.
I remember having a short-lived Neopets obsession. I had cards, toys from McDonald's, and went on the site pretty often. And I know my sister had a ton of the merchandise, but I can't really remember much about the game itself. So, let's explore the museum that is Neopets.
Neopets began in 1999 and it rapidly grew. By May of 2000, the site had investors and up to 500,000 users. There was no advertising at this point, it was all by word of mouth. The original designs of the Neopets were just the worst. I mean, all the bad Flash design tropes are here. Gradients, mismatched colors, Bruce Forsyth and Macy Gray. These were actual Neopets. Needless to say, the crude artwork of the site's early days had to be updated. I'm sorry, Bruce, but hey, you're a penguin now. Higher quality artwork, hubs, and events were eventually added to the website, and with the growth and popularity came brand deals. Tiger Electronics had an electronic game, a toy line by Thinkway, a card game by Wizards of the Coast, and a McDonald's and Burger King tie-in. I vividly remember going into Target and seeing Neopets displays, commercials on TV, and trying to steal time on my mom's Windows 95 computer. Neopets was a phenomenon, or just a fad.
Now at Burger King, each Neopet toy comes with its own special code you can enter online for a free virtual prize. Just ask your parents before going online.
Yeah, the site hasn't updated much. Once you log on, the first thing you do is create your Neopet. The different species are where this game shines. They're all really charming and have customization now. So even though there isn't like 1 quazillion different species, your Neopet can be unique. Sort of. Coming back on the site, I thought my favorite was always Scorchio, but then I remembered Shoryu, which I actively remember quite liking. And then there was Kachik, who I sort of remember being pushed as a sort of Neopet mascot, probably because it was close enough to another character. Alright, I'm naming my Kachik Kachikachu, which is already taken, okay? What else can I name it? Give me some suggestions. Yeah, that was a real suggestion from the website. The whole website is connected through hyperlinks and Flash-based hub worlds. There's a lot of games to play, but to my understanding, the thing that the fans have really grown to like is the social aspect. But don't mention the Reddit on the website, you can get in a timeout. The whole game's economy is built around the Neopoint. You earn Neopoints by playing Flash games that range anywhere from dull to mildly entertaining to incredibly passive, like Extreme Potato Counter. A game where you count potatoes. Extremely. By earning Neopoints or paying for items with real cash, you can buy your Neopets clothes, food, accessories, and set up shops to interact with other Neopets players. You can also get your Neopet its own pet called a pet. Yeah. Look at Worf, he's just so great. The economy of this game is surprisingly more complex than I thought it would be. So the Neopoint as a currency is always inflating and deflating, and the shops in the games regularly sell out of items and change up their stock. So getting certain items becomes a quest in itself. However, you can open up your own shop and resell items, and depending on the rarity, you can get more Neopoints for it. You can also haggle with the shopkeepers, but if you haggle too much, the item could sell out or you can get kicked out. What do you mean you won't take 1 Neopoint? There's also a bank where you can store your points and collect interest depending on how much you have. Going online to learn more about how this all operates has overwhelmed me because there are whole sites, blogs, and articles dedicated to the Neo economy. Surprisingly, there's a lot to do on the Neopets site, but it's horribly outdated. The game has no central hub. Navigating the site is confusing at times, and it's totally a relic from the past. I'm surprised there's never been a big push to update the site. Sure, you might isolate older fans, but you can't keep the site going just off of a dwindling fan base who remember the good old days. I think my biggest problem with the site is the interaction with your Neopet. You don't do things with your Neopet, you do things for your Neopet. There is this little gladiator fight section, but it looks like it was animated in PowerPoint. You can dress up your Neopet, feed it, give it potions, but it always stays a static image. The games you play feel like odd jobs and disassociated with the pet itself. I definitely feel like the site grew in popularity because it looked nice and there was nothing else to do at the time. But there were more interactive kids games that were created, and even though the visual brand of Neopets is strong, the site itself never updated with the times. Sorry, Bruce. Neopets is creative, and it uses the limitations of Flash and HTML to its advantages. But let's take a look at some of the offshoots of the site itself. There were a lot of Neopets plushes and toys, including deluxe figures and a talking Kachik doll. I always found this one weird because it's like,
could you rub behind my ears? I really love that. Wow, you're really nice.
who's doing that voice? But anyways, first came the electronic pet. Mine's a Tanu. There's a series of games built into the handheld, but none of them are particularly interesting. It is a calculator-based electronic handheld. I think the look of the actual device is the interesting part. I mean, you got this little toy of a Neopet, and the only way you can press any of the buttons is through the little butt plug on the bottom. So if you lose your Neopet toy, the handheld automatically becomes harder to use. Here's a good one, Neopets the Darkest Fairy. This was a part of a series of video games made for Neopets, and unfortunately my S-Video based capture card isn't working, so I had to film the screen. You play as a loop named Tormund. Yes, Tormund. If the name Neopets wasn't on here, it would be a generic action game in a generic fantasy world. Though your dad kinda kills the fantasy world because he's literally just wearing flannel and khakis. Okay. Its controls are just bad enough to where it's not frustrating, but not good enough to where it's fun. I feel like I've been having a trend of playing really passive games recently. These cutscenes are atrocious even by 2005 standards. I mean, could you do a little more than 2 frames a second? This was one of 3 video games to feature Neopets, and none of them were considered to be any good, and this is no exception, though I do remember really wanting this game, and I'm really glad I never had it as a kid, because then I would have a nostalgic connection to it, and I would make videos embarrassing myself defending it. Finally, I'm breaking my collector's rule. I bought a sealed 2-player starter set for the Neopets card game, and I'm opening it. Oh look! I bet if people actually played this game and I opened this pack and got a card as rare as this one, it would be cool. But nobody plays it. I also got an Aisha Enchantress, a Mincy Tourist, and... Oh! So the Neopets card game was actually on the website first, and then Wizards of the Coast picked it up to do a proper TCG. Wizards also published Magic and used to do Pokemon, and just out of curiosity I checked, it appears the Neopets cards are printed on the same card stock as Pokemon cards. I actually had someone over to play this game just out of curiosity, and it's so heckin' simple. At least in the starter set. Looking at these rules, it seems to get a little more complex, but I really can't imagine how. So your Neopets has 4 different stats: Magic, Strength, Agility, and Intelligence. You can enter them into one of 4 contests to challenge another Neopet. The winner of the contest is ultimately who has the highest number. To get that number, you add your Neopet's base stat, any equipped items, and finally, a dice roll. If you roll a 6, you automatically win the contest. Each card has a set number value, and every time you win a contest, you place a card from your hand into your bank. First one to have a bank with 21 value wins. Especially in the base set, there aren't a lot of cards that require strategy, and all your Neopets are pretty much evenly matched. So the whole game comes down to the dice roll. It's just rolling the dice until somebody gets 21 first. Looking at the rulebook, it appears as if the game gets a little more complex with the expansions, but right out of the box, it's incredibly simple, dull, and boring, except for Worf. Worf is an angel.
You win because of Worf. Worf coming in clutch.
Look at that frisbee, man. Frisbee bigger than him.
Cute little Worf.
Fucking worst, man.
When Facebook started to become popular, Neopets tried to dip its hand in more simplistic web-based games. Pet Pet Park on Nickelodeon, Astounding Habitarium, and Key Quest were all their little side games. And yes, Rule 34 does apply. These were all attempts to break out of that web-based gameplay, but none were successful. The Neopets brand itself has been passed around to different companies, and as of 2018, the site is still updating with new storylines and whatnot. It also has a really active subreddit, something I was surprised to discover. In an interview with Kotaku in January of 2017, Neopets CEO David Lord stated that the site still sees 100,000 daily users internationally. The Facebook page still sees activity from users, and apparently its fan base knows it's not updating with the times. The site has seen better days, and apparently it's seen some pretty bad days too. Neopets fans refer to the Day of Sin, in which all the moderators got shut out of the chat rooms and a ton of inappropriate comments were posted. Eat my hoe butt, Kyle. This is still a weird relic from 2003 or whatever year, but I still think that the concept itself is, cross-applicable to other platforms. It's begging to be updated. Neopets should be completely revamped for mobile. In a new Neopets game, I'd want to see a refocus on the pet aspect, making your Neopet the center of the gameplay. Of course, there needs to be a continuation of the social interaction with message boards and whatnot, but most importantly, there needs to be a centralized hub. No hyperlink in Flash games and HTML5 worlds, just one user interface that covers everything. Put it on the phone, bam, $1 million.
Or everybody forgot about Neopets and it makes the company who makes it bankrupt. Anyways, a big fiery death is better than the slow and painful death that Neopets is experiencing now. Hey, what's up? Thanks for watching. If this is your first video of mine, please consider subscribing and following me on social media for updates. Speaking of updates, I just updated all of my tiers on my Patreon, so if you want to become a patron, you can go there. Other than that, have a good day. I'll see you next week.